Hey everybody, welcome back to 3D Now. My name is Jack, and this is a beginner's guide to Ultimaker Cura. So 3D printing has exploded in the past few years, and lots of people are getting in on the fun. And one of the most important pieces of software for 3D printing is called the slicer, which slices up your 3D object into a pretty much toolpath that your 3D printer can follow to make your object. And Ultimaker Cura is one of the most popular and easiest to use slicers. So I made a video on Cura a while back, but there have been many updates since then. We're on Cura 4.8 right now. So I'm going to make a quick video showing how to download the software, how to set it up, and how to use it for beginners. So of course the first thing is to go to the website. You can just Google Ultimaker Cura, or you can go to ultimaker.com/software/ultimaker-cura. And this will show the most latest version, which for me, it's 4.8. You can just click download for free. This is free software. You can get it on Windows, Mac, or Linux. I already installed it for Windows. You can click download now, and then just follow the basic install procedure for most applications. It's pretty much the same thing. So now I'm going to open up Cura, and this is what you're going to see when you first open it up. It's a pretty simple quick start guide to get started. Click the Get Started button, and it's going to show a user agreement. You can read this if you want. I'm going to click Agree. The next thing is just a What's New page to list all the new features they added for this 4.8 version. I'm going to click Next. This just shows you that they're going to collect some anonymous data to help them improve the software. Click Next again. If you want, you can sign in or create an account, but I'm just going to click Skip for now. Alright, so here's where we're going to add our printer into the software. You can add multiple printers, but I'm going to start out with just one. That's pretty simple. And so most people are going to be printing over an SD card. So we're going to add a non-networked printer. So you can print over the network, but that's a whole nother topic. So most people are going to print over an SD card. Just download the file, add it to your SD card, and plug that into your printer and print off that. So we're going to click on the non-networked printer tab for now. So they have a lot of preset printer profiles. So this software is by Ultimaker, so they're going to list their Ultimaker printers. But I'm going to scroll down past that for now. And you can see they have tons and tons of printers already on here, and most likely yours is going to be on here as well. So I'm going to do my Creality Ender 3. So I click Creality 3D and scroll down to the Ender 3. And by chance, if your printer is not in this list, you can go up to the top, and you can see there is a setting for custom. You can click custom and click custom FFF printer, and then just name it over here, click next, and it'll pop up the same page as when I click my Creality Ender 3. So I'll scroll back down to this, Creality 3D, click my Ender 3, and you can name it here. I'm just going to keep it as Creality Ender 3 for now. I'm going to hit next, and it's going to automatically populate this machine settings page. And if you did a custom printer, this page is going to pop up as well, but you're going to have to add in your own machine settings. So the most important part in here is the printer width, depth, and height. So X and Y is your bed size. So for the Ender 3 is 235 by 235 millimeters, and the print height is 250 millimeters. We can see here the build plate shape on my Ender 3 is a rectangle. The origin is not at the center. The origin for most 3D printers is in the front left, so I'm going to leave it unchecked. And again, this is already pre-made for the Ender 3. These are all correct. I'm just going to go over each setting real quick. So heated bed, the Ender 3 does have one, so that is checked. Heated build volume, this does not. The Ender 3 has an open frame. The G-code flavor is Marlin for most printers. Printhead settings, these are, you can leave default for now. Number of extruders, there's only one on my Ender 3. And here is just some of the G-code, which is the actual lines of code that the printer reads. And this is just some of the start G-code that runs at the beginning, and end that runs at the end of the print. So these you can just leave for now. If you get more into 3D printing and want to do more advanced things, it'll be useful later on. So we can go over to the Extruder 1 tab, and this is the settings about the Ender 3 extruder. We can see our printer uses 1.75 millimeter filament, and X and Y and cooling fan number. You can just leave these default as well because these are correct for my Ender 3. But again, if you created a custom printer, you have to do these yourself. But again, these are all correct because I used a pre-made profile. So we can click Next, and that's going to finish our quick start guide. We can see here the user interface. So right here in front of us is our bed. So we can actually use the right mouse button click and go around the bed. You can see the Ender logo there a little bit on the bottom. It's a little easier to see. So this is our actual print bed, and the darker color is the outer edge, and the lighter color is where we can actually place objects and print. And the front left here, like I said before, is the origin. So it shows you that right there. Also, if we press down and hold the center scroll wheel, we can actually pan around as well in our view space. And up here, we have button on the far left is to open up and add a file to print. Over here, we can select our printer. Right now, we only have one. We can add more printers here. We have next is our profile for our nozzle size and our material. So I'm printing PLA, and the Ender 3 has a 0.4 millimeter nozzle. Again, we can change that, but this should be correct for now. You can see they have different filament types, but I'm going to show you how to do it a little more advanced in the settings tab over here. Again, over here on the right is our settings for our print. We can click that, and the first page right here is a pretty simple, easy beginner's settings guide. This is pretty much just very basic settings that will allow you to print stuff really easy, really fast, quick. It should be fine. But if you get more advanced and want to do some more setting tweaks and things like that, you can go into the custom settings menu, and this has a lot more settings to play around with. And also we can change these settings in here. We can go to settings, go to configure settings visibility, and these are actually all of the settings that you can enable with these boxes on the left, and they'll show up over here. But again, this is a lot more advanced, and I won't go into this in this video. So you can exit out of that, and we're going to exit out of this for now. So up here, this is our prepare workspace, where we're going to prepare our model to be printed. Once we slice our model, we can go look at it in the preview tab, and then the monitor tab over here is not for this video, but you can plug in your printer and then control it via Cura in this tab. But right now we're going to be looking at the prepare and preview tabs. Alright, so up here at the top are just some more basic settings. We can look at our printer settings, our extruder settings, again, preferences. You can configure Cura. You can do dark mode if you want. I'm just leave it normal for now. But again, you can play around with these things some more once you get more used to the software. So here are the settings like I showed before. We have our printers. We can add some more or rename this if you wanted to. Here's the materials that show up on this middle bar up here. We can even create our own profiles of our own filament that we like, so you can quickly select the settings for our types of filament, but this is a little more advanced for this beginner video. And also we can add profiles that will we can click our profile and they will add all the settings for us automatically, but that's a little bit more complex, and I might do a new video on these more complex things if you want. So those are some quick settings. So now we're going to try to actually slice a model. So there's multiple ways we can import a model. We can just drag it in, or we can click on the button over here on the far left to open a model. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to downloads, and I'm going to open a 3D Benchy. So you might have seen this before. The 3D Benchy is a benchmark in the 3D printing community. It combines a lot of hard things to print, like overhangs and circles and small objects and stuff like that. So this is pretty much just like a thing that a lot of people print out first, just to make sure that their printer is working correctly. It's all calibrated and everything looks good to go to print more advanced objects. Alright, so now that our Benchy is inside Ultimaker Cura, we can see it in our build area. We're going to adjust these settings for our print. So we have our printer selected. I'm going to go over to our settings page over here. I'm going to go back to recommended for now, just to show you this simple, easy, quick start settings page. If you're an absolute beginner, want to get up and printing very easily, this is the page for you. So up top here we can see profiles default, and this is the layer height that's going to be printed at. So we can select 0.12 millimeter layer height, and it says super quality. So the thinner the layers, the longer it's going to take, but the more quality there's going to be in your print. We can move up to dynamic quality, and these are again profiles that are default in Ultimaker Cura. So this has all the settings pre-made for you. They're called profiles, and we can make our own later if we get more advanced. We can go to 0.2, which is standard quality, they call it. I usually print at 0.2. It's good for both speed and quality. We can go up even more to low quality, but again, the thicker your layers, the less quality it would have, but it'll print faster. So there's a trade-off between all these profiles. So you have to pick one that works best for you in your print. So there's another option we can do down here, which is called infill, and this is the percentage of material it fills in the interior of our object. So if we want 0% infill, we can hit that, and it would literally print this entire shape hollow, just the outer edges. We can even go up to 100% infill, which will then make our object totally solid. Or if you don't want your print to take a long time, but by making it solid, I usually print at around 20 to 15% infill, which is a good trade-off again between the quality of your print, how strong it will be, and also the time it takes to print that object. So also, if we look underneath, we can see there is some red, which shows that this is an overhang. And our printer cannot just print plastic in midair, so sometimes we may need to add what's called support structures. So if you want, you can enable that here, and it will create these sort of thin towers that support these overhangs. But for a Benchy, I'm just going to leave that out for now. But just so you know, a lot of prints do need supports if you see a large overhang. And also, slicing is kind of a skill that takes some time to master and get used to. So at first, you will kind of start printing with some settings, and you realize how you can change the settings to make your next print even better. And over time, you'll learn more and more. So in the future, you may look at an object and know right away that it needs support, or you may know that it needs some more settings to be adjusted to print properly or print how you like it. So this takes time, and the more you slice, the more you print, the more you adjust after your slicing, the better you will get at picking the settings correct the first time. Alright, so next we're going to head over to the custom tab, and this is where more advanced settings are, and this is where you can add those other settings that I showed you, and this is the page where you can adjust every little detail about your print. And again, this does take time. It takes time to get used to, but you can look online, ask other people that are good with 3D printing, and just test out new settings. The good thing about Cura is that if you just hover over it, it will tell you a little bit about what the setting does. So first we have quality, which is the layer height of our part. So again, I like to leave it at 0.2, and again we can look on the left and see a little description of what this does. Next we have shell, which is, like it says, these shells around the outside of our object. So we have wall thickness, wall line count, which is 3. So loop around our part and do 3 lines. We can do this bottom and top thickness, top layers, bottom layers. This is how many solid layers it will do on the top and bottom of your print. There's some more as well. We have infill. Like I said before, this is the percentage of material print inside of your object. 10% is pretty good. And we can also add infill patterns. Cubic is pretty standard. I like gyroid, which is a pretty fun one. You'll see that a little bit later in the preview tab. We can go to material. And this is where you can adjust the printing temperature and bed temperature. And your filament will probably tell you on the spool or on the filament manufacturer's website what to use. So each filament might have a different temperature it likes, or it might give you a range. 200 is pretty good for my PLA I'm using, and I usually use about 60 on the bed. And again, this is, like it shows, a spool of filament. This changes for the different filaments that you may use on your printer. Next we have speed, which, like it says, is how fast your printer is going to print. 50 millimeters per second is good for now. That's a pretty normal speed. We have travel, which is how fast the print head moves between printing. So we can leave that default for now. We have cooling, which we can just enable the cooling fan, and the fan speed is 100% for our part. Like I said before, we have a support tab where we can generate support for our object, but for this 3D Benchy, I'm just going to leave it without support for now. There's a tab for boat plate adhesion, which you can add a skirt around it, a brim, a raft, or none. So a skirt is a few lines around your object just to get your nozzle primed and ready to go and purged, so it's filament coming out when it starts the print. A brim is it just widens your first layer so you have more surface area sticking to the bed. And a raft is, like it says, it's a few layers of like a solid sheet that is more surface area that sticks to the bed, and then your part's printed on top of that raft, and you can just peel the raft off after the print. So some parts you may see as you're printing them, they may pop off the bed, or they're very small, and you may need to add some boat plate adhesion to get your parts to stick while printing. And the final one is dual extrusion, but I don't ever use that because my printer has only one extruder. And again, like I said before, we can adjust the settings in each one of these tabs by going to settings, configure setting visibility. We can click these here. You can see it adds those settings to our pane here. So there are tons and tons of settings that we can adjust, but they're not by default in our settings pane over here. So in the future, if you get more advanced and you want to add more settings to adjust, you can click these and they'll show up over here as well. So that's basically the settings for Cura. I'm going to exit out of this for now. And also you might be wondering how we can adjust our model or move it around if we have multiple models, make it bigger, make it smaller, duplicate it, things like that. So we can click on our object, and on the left we can see a new panel appears. So the first one is the location, so we can adjust the X, Y, and Z on our build plate by adjusting these values, or we can just use the arrows to just drag it around as well, which works fine as well. The next one is scale, so we can adjust it here, or we can just drag these boxes and make it bigger or smaller, things like that. Also we can click here and rotate our object as well. So basically the main ones you're going to use, the main three, are moving your object around, scaling it, and rotating. So these top three you're going to use most often. And again, you can just use these controls to move them as well. So also we can right click on our parts. We can like center it if we wanted to, or we can arrange it and it'll automatically place it where Cura thinks is best. Or we can clear build plate, which will remove all the objects, or we can even multiply it. I can multiply it one time, and I'll create another one over there, which is pretty cool. I can right-click, delete it, things like that. In addition, down here in the bottom left, we can name our part. So I'm just going to name it 3D Benchy for now. It also tells you the size of your object. And below that, we can actually click and see different views of our print bed and our part that we're going to print. There we go. All right, so once we have our object imported, it's oriented correctly, we adjusted the settings how we want it, we're going to go ahead and click the slice button. And now it's going to actually do all the math and slice up our part with the settings that we gave it to create the toolpath that the printer uses to actually print our part out in 3 dimensions. And once it's all finished up, and we can see here, it gave us an estimate of how long our print is going to take, 5 hours and 6 minutes. It shows us the estimate of how much filament it's going to use, about 26 grams, or 8.82 meters of our filament. So here, we can either save it to a file and put it on our SD card, or we can go to the preview tab, and I'm just going to click that for now just to show you what it looks like. And it's going to load a preview of what our print is going to look like. So if we zoom in, we can actually see the actual toolpath, the actual layers of our print. So we can actually use this on the right to move up and down the layers. You can see here that pretty cool gyroid infill inside of our model. We can even click play, and it will actually show us the actual toolpath of where our nozzle is going to go to print our part. So we can say move up a few layers, click play. You can see here it's actually showing us an animation of what is going to print, which is very cool. In addition, a cool thing is that we can just go back to all the layers. We can go up to this toolbar up top. We can change our view types. This is just a normal layer view. Or we can go to an X-ray view, which shows us like through the model and in the interior, and I don't know. It's a pretty cool view if you want to use this, but normally we just use a layer view. Also, we can go to the material color or the color scheme, and we can go down here. We can change it to line type, and it'll actually change the colors corresponding to the type of line that it's printing. So you can see here the red is the shell lines. The helpers is light blue, which is the skirt around here. The inner wall is green. You can see that on top and right here. The top and bottom is this yellow, which we can also see. This top layer right here. If we go underneath, you can see that bottom as well, which is pretty cool. I like this line type color scheme because you can see all the different types of printing lines it's going to make. We can actually go through each layer again and see the different colors of the infills and the top and bottom layers and the shells. So once we just do a quick preview and check that our print looks good, we can click Save to File, put that on our SD card, pop it into our printer, and then click Print. So that's basically it. You created your first sliced object on Ultimaker Cura, and hopefully you learned something. You learned about this pretty powerful piece of software that is pretty easy for beginners all the way up to advanced. And the more you slice, the more you print, and the more you learn from each print you make, and you can adjust, the better you will get in the future on how to slice and pick the correct settings for your print. So, thanks for watching, everybody. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe for more 3D printing videos like this, comment down below if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, and I will see you all in the next video.